What if the biggest thing standing between you and your first or next real estate deal wasn't your credit score, or your down payment, or that mountain of paperwork on a loan officer's desk? What if the most powerful player in nearly every real estate transaction, the bank, was completely optional? For decades, we've been told there's pretty much one way to buy property. You find a place, you go to a bank, you practically beg for a loan, and if they deem you worthy, you get the keys. But there's another path. It's a financing method that allows a buyer to get a loan, not from a bank, but directly from the person selling the house. It's called seller financing, and while it's not some secret conspiracy, it definitely operates in the shadows of the traditional lending world. We're going to follow the money to show you how this works, why it's getting a fresh look in today's tricky market, and why it might just be the most powerful alternative to traditional lending you've never seriously considered. The entire real estate industry is built on a simple formula. A buyer needs cash, a bank supplies it, and a seller gets paid. The bank is the gatekeeper, deciding who gets to play and who stays on the sidelines. But what if the bank's job could change hands? The power to lend, set the terms, and collect interest can actually be transferred from a multi-trillion-dollar institution to the person selling their home. That single shift can turn a regular home sale into a private lending relationship, opening the door to deals that banks would shut down in a second. To get how different this is, let's quickly trace the money in a standard deal. The buyer brings a down payment, say 20%. A bank then wires the other 80% to the seller. From that moment on, the buyer owes the bank, sending a check every month for the next 30 years. The seller walks away, cash in hand. The bank is the hub for everything. Now, let's unplug the bank. In a seller-financed deal, the buyer and seller agree on a price, but instead of the buyer going to a bank, they ask the seller to be the lender. It might sound a little weird, but the mechanics are surprisingly simple. First, the buyer and seller negotiate everything themselves: the price, down payment, interest rate, and the length of the loan. These terms are often far more flexible than what a bank would ever consider. Once they agree, two key legal documents are drawn up. The first is a promissory note. It's exactly what it sounds like: the buyer's written, legally binding promise to pay back the loan over time. It spells out the loan amount, interest rate, and the payment schedule. The second is a security instrument, usually a mortgage or a deed of trust. This is the seller's safety net. It gives the seller a legal claim, or lien, on the property, just like a bank would have. If the buyer stops paying, this document gives the seller the right to take back the property, though the process can be costly and time-consuming. With the paperwork signed by an attorney to ensure it's all legal, the buyer gives the seller the down payment, and the deal is closed. From then on, the buyer sends monthly payments, covering principal and interest, straight to the seller. Just like that, the seller has become the bank. Let's put some numbers on this. Imagine a house is on the market for $400,000. A buyer, maybe a self-employed entrepreneur with a fluctuating income, can't get a loan from a traditional bank, even though she has a decent amount of cash saved up. She approaches the seller and pitches a seller financing deal. The seller, who owns the house free and clear and doesn't need all $400,000 at once, is open to the idea. Here's one way their deal could be structured. Purchase price, $400,000. Down payment, $80,000, or 20%. paid directly to the seller. Amount financed by seller, $320,000. Interest rate, 7%, a little higher than the bank rate, which compensates the seller for taking on the risk. Loan term, a 5-year term, but with payments calculated on a 30-year schedule. This is called the amortization. This structure keeps the monthly payments from being sky high. But here's the most important part of this specific structure. At the end of those 5 years, a balloon payment is due. This means the entire remaining loan balance, let's say it's around $295,000, has to be paid to the seller in one big lump sum. Now, the buyer's plan isn't to magically find $295,000 in cash. The strategy is to use those 5 years to build a perfect payment history, stabilize her income, and boost her credit profile. Then, before that balloon payment hits, she can walk into a traditional bank with a much stronger application and refinance the property, paying off the seller completely. She used seller financing as a bridge to get from unbankable to approved. You're probably asking, why on earth would a seller agree to this? Why wait for your money and risk the buyer defaulting? The reasons are actually pretty strategic. First, it opens up the property to a much wider pool of buyers. In a market with high interest rates, many capable buyers get sidelined by the banks. Offering financing attracts people the bank's algorithms can't make sense of, like gig workers, small business owners, or people with complicated financial histories. Second, it can mean a much faster sale. The slow, bureaucratic nightmare of bank underwriting can drag on for months. A seller-financed deal can close in weeks because there's no third-party lender holding things up. Third, it creates a steady stream of income. Instead of one lump sum of cash they now have to figure out how to invest, the seller gets monthly payments with interest. For a retiree, turning a paid-off house into a secured, high-yield investment can be a brilliant move. Finally, there can be tax advantages. By taking payments over several years in an installment sale, sellers can often defer their capital gains tax, spreading out the tax hit over the life of the loan instead of taking one massive blow in the year of the sale. However, the interest they receive is taxed as regular income, and the rules can get complicated, so good tax advice is key. For buyers, seller financing is a game changer, and not just for those with shaky credit. The main benefit is simply access. It creates a path to ownership when the traditional one is blocked. A seller can look at your entire financial story and make a human judgment call, something a bank algorithm just can't do. The flexibility is also a huge plus. Buyers and sellers can get creative with terms a bank would laugh at, maybe a lower down payment for a higher interest rate, or an interest-only period to keep costs down at the start. It can also be the only way to buy properties that are tough to finance conventionally. Think unique homes, buildings needing major repairs, or a condo in a complex with a pending lawsuit. A bank sees a red flag. With seller financing, these are just negotiating points. And of course, their speed. In a hot market, a buyer who isn't waiting on bank approval is a seller's dream. This strategy really shifts the power dynamic in a real estate deal, moving control away from big institutions and putting it back in the hands of the individuals doing the deal. It's a powerful reminder that the rules are often more flexible than they seem. If you've ever used seller financing or are just hearing about this, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to learn more financial strategies that operate outside the mainstream, make sure you subscribe. If seller financing is so great, why isn't everyone doing it? Honestly, it's not because of some big conspiracy. It's less common because the banking system is just so dominant, and because this path has its own set of serious risks for both sides. For the buyer, the risks are real. Interest rates are often higher because the seller is taking a chance a bank won't. And that balloon payment we talked about can be a huge gamble. If the buyer can't refinance when that lump sum is due, they could lose the property and every dollar of equity they've put into it. Furthermore, while laws like the Dodd-Frank Act have added consumer protections, these deals can still lack the standardized safeguards of a traditional mortgage, making a rock-solid, attorney-drafted contract absolutely essential. For the seller, the number one risk is the buyer defaulting. If the payments stop, the seller has to navigate the expensive and lengthy legal process of foreclosure or forfeiture to get their property back. They also have to be patient. Their money is tied up in the property for years instead of being in their bank account. They're taking on the role of a lender without having a bank's army of lawyers and resources. This isn't a magic bullet. It's a calculated risk. It works best when a buyer is a solid bet who just doesn't fit the bank's rigid little box, and when a seller is financially stable enough to act as the lender. So, what's the strategy banks don't want you to know? It's not some hidden loophole. It's the simple, powerful idea that in any transaction, you can change the rules by changing the players. The traditional path forces you to play by the bank's rules, on their schedule, with their money. Seller financing lets you create your own game. You're not just negotiating the price of a house anymore. You're negotiating the very financial structure that holds the deal together. When a home is sold with seller financing, it's not just the property that changes hands. The bank's job does too. It moves from a skyscraper downtown into the hands of an ordinary person. That transfer of power, from a massive institution to an individual, is what makes this strategy so potent. It's a reminder that in the world of finance, the most powerful tool is creativity. And sometimes, the best way to win is to stop playing by their rules and start writing your own.